All right, everyone, it is 2:02, so we are going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today for our Know What to Throw Recycling Do's and Don'ts webinar. Today, we are going to explore the specifics of what you can and cannot recycle, and we're also going to learn more about the new products our recyclables are turned into. So just a couple of technical things before we get started. This webinar is being recorded, so if you have to leave in the middle or you want to access it after it's over with, this will be on our website probably by the end of the day tomorrow. We also ask that you use the Q&A feature for the webinar, not the chat. If you do have any questions during the presentation, go ahead and type those into the Q&A. We will have time for questions at the end, so we just won't answer your questions until the webinar is completed. Yeah, other than that, we can go ahead and get started. So again, welcome everyone. My name is Zoe Jump. I am the Education Coordinator for Keep Greater Milwaukee Beautiful. If anyone hasn't heard of Keep Greater Milwaukee Beautiful before, our mission is to create sustainable communities through clean, healthy, and beautiful neighborhoods for generations to come. So we do this through environmental education for all ages. We teach people about recycling, composting, water pollution, energy conservation, all of those exciting environmental topics. And we also do a lot of work in the beautification area, like litter cleanups. All right, so we can't talk about recycling without talking about trash. So Americans just plain out make too much trash. Every single person makes almost 5 pounds of trash every single day. Every month, Americans actually throw out enough recyclable items like glass bottles, jars, plastic, and paper to fill an entire skyscraper. And all of those things are recyclable. So it's very important that we recycle those things instead of throwing them into the landfill. So obviously throwing these recyclable items into the landfill is bad because they will never decompose. So an aluminum can, if it's not recycled and it's sent to the landfill, it could take up to 100 years for it to fully decompose in a landfill. Things like plastic take even longer. Some plastic containers take over 1 million years to decompose. Same with glass. Glass is just as bad. Those take over 1 million years to decompose. So what do we think the solution is to this? It is these 6 R words. So today we're just going to talk about 4 R words, and this isn't just a catchy phrase. I mean, we do use it with kids as kind of a kid-friendly environmental education topic, but it's actually a very prioritized list. So the first R word on our list is reduce, which just means to use less. So this could be something as simple as using less paper or using less plastic. It's just using less. The second R word is reuse, which is just reusing things instead of buying new things. So bringing a reusable water bottle to work or school instead of buying plastic bottles. The third R word is rot, which is just a silly word for composting. When we compost, we make less food waste by putting them into our compost bin instead. And then recycle is what we will be talking about today. When we all recycle right, that is another really important R word. So, recycling. Recycling is actually the law. Wisconsin passed a recycling law in 1990 that actually bans certain materials from being landfilled. So these materials, some examples are number 1 and number 2 plastic containers, aluminum cans, glass bottles, steel and tin containers, all paper and cardboard, and then appliances and electronics. So not only is recycling good for the environment, but it's also the law. So now that we all are recycling, all of our recyclables go to a thing called a MRF, and that stands for Materials Recovery Facility. And the MRF we're going to be talking about today is located in the city of Milwaukee, and it is jointly owned by the city of Milwaukee and the county of Waukesha. This MRF gets recycling collection for all 1 to 4 unit households in the city of Milwaukee and the county of Waukesha. So we're just going to be talking about the rules for this specific facility. All right, and this facility is actually what we call a single stream recycling facility. And all that means is that everything is fully co-mingled or single sorted. So it makes recycling a lot easier for residents as well as for the recycling facility. All of the papers, fibers, and containers are all mixed together. Nothing has to be separated at the curbside. You don't need to sort your paper from your containers, and it allows for the collection of even more materials. All right, so let's get into our recycling guide. The photo that you guys see on the screen right now is actually a screenshot of the recycling guide located on the City of Milwaukee website. Today we're going to be focusing on curbside recycling. So what is curbside recycling compared to recycling? So we're just going to be talking about what you can put in your blue bin or your cart at your home. Some of these items that we talk about can be recycled elsewhere or they could be donated, but today we're just going to be talking about what to put at the curbside. So this guide on the paper, like I said, it's available on the City of Milwaukee's website. You guys can access that. You could print it off. You can stick it to your recycling bin. You can put it on your refrigerator. And this will be a really easy reminder moving forward on what you can and can't recycle. All right, so we're gonna really get into the nitty gritty here today of the do's and don'ts, and we're gonna start with paper. Paper that you can recycle at the curbside are going to be newspapers, magazines, the glossy ones are okay, any sort of mail, junk mail, and a lot of people ask if they have to cut out the clear windows or tabs, and you do not. You can keep those on your mail, no problem. You can recycle phone books, all white or colored paper, and just try and keep staples and tape in very, very small amounts. Cardboard, if there's big cardboard boxes, make sure you are flattening those. Paper grocery bags and shredded paper, as long as it's placed in a paper bag to contain it. Also with shredded paper, keep an eye out for shredded paper events. These are typically offered by office supply stores or financial institutions. And you can also compost shredded paper. So if any of you guys have a compost bin at home, you can go ahead and just throw that in your compost bin. Paper that's not accepted is going to be end-use paper, so tissues, paper towels, toilet paper, any paper that is wet, greasy, or food soiled, any paper freezer containers, so paper ice cream pails, those are not recyclable. Those are sprayed with a pretty thick plastic overspray, and it doesn't allow the paper underneath to be recovered. So those have to go into the garbage, as well as those containers that have a fiber body and a metal bottom. So those containers are going to be things like Pringle containers, the things that crescent rolls come in that you have to smack against your countertop to open, mixed nuts containers. So keep an eye out for those fiber body metal bottom containers. Those are not recyclable curbside. And the last thing is going to be food soiled pizza boxes or carry out food boxes. So the picture you guys see below, if it's greasy, if it has food in it, it cannot be recyclable. But if it's nice and clean, like the photo on the left, then you can go ahead and throw it in your bin. All right, moving on to cartons. Cartons are a pretty easy one. We're just talking about food and beverage cartons and just the ones that are shelf stable or refrigerated only. Like I mentioned in the paper slide, we don't want freezer cartons because of that thick plastic overspray. Make sure that these are getting emptied and you quickly rinse them out just so there's no food residue in them. But these cartons are accepted. Glass. Accepted glass is going to be any glass that is a colored or clear bottle or jug. Typically, this is things that held food or beverages, pasta jars, salsa jars, pickle jars, beer bottles. Make sure these are rinsed out and try not to smash them into your recycling bin. Try to keep them intact as you can. And then the lids should be taken off and the labels are okay to keep on. Glass that is not accepted curbside is going to be drinking glasses, crystal, any sort of cookware, light bulbs, windows, windshields. These items use ingredients during manufacturing that are actually considered contaminants in the glass recycling process. So just stick to glass that had food or beverages in it. And our metal, another material, metals that are accepted curbside are going to be aluminum containers, so aluminum cans. They also take aluminum foil and pans as long as they're clean. So if they're greasy or dirty, you don't want to recycle those, but if they're clean, you can go ahead and do it. Tin cans, pots and pans, steel cans, and you can also recycle empty aerosol cans as long as they didn't have any hazardous materials in them. Metal that isn't accepted are pretty much things that would damage the recycling machines. So as you guys could probably imagine, things like car parts, nails, and screws are not only dangerous for the machines, but they're dangerous for the workers. Scrap metal is also very dangerous. Gasoline cans and propane tanks are probably the worst ones. Propane tanks can set fires in the recycling facility, damaging the machines. So make sure you do not put propane tanks, no matter the size, in your recycling bin. All right, and plastic. Plastic is probably the material with the most rules. The plastic that is accepted does need to be cleaned, rinsed out. You don't have to soap it out with soap and water. Just a nice quick rinse will do the job. So you can flip over a plastic container and it will contain a triangle with a number in it. And that represents the resin code of that plastic. So the numbers that are currently being accepted are number 1s, number 2s, and number 5s. Number 1 plastics are your very common plastics. Those are going to be your soda bottle, water bottles. Number 2s are going to be things like milk jugs, laundry detergent bottles, shampoo and conditioner bottles. Bulky number 2s are also acceptable. That would be things like 5-gallon buckets, cat litter containers, and lastly, 5s. 2 examples of 5 would be a pill bottle or a yogurt container. So what about plastics 3s, 4s, 6s, and 7s? Those are not accepted curbside. At this time, there are no markets for these types of plastics. Therefore, they are not recyclable in your curbside bin and should be placed in your garbage cart. Other types of plastic that aren't accepted are any sort of slippery plastic film. So the biggie is going to be plastic bags, the casing around 24 water bottle packs, bread bags, dry cleaning bags, frozen food bags, those green biodegradable produce bags. All of those are that plastic film, and we don't want to put that in our curbside bin. We will talk about later on in the presentation how we do dispose of that, so keep an eye out for that slide. Other types of plastic that aren't accepted are styrofoam, any bottles that contained antifreeze or motor oil, and then lastly is plastic toys. All right, to squish or not to squish, that is the question. So crushing or flattening your recycling is actually doing more harm than good. So 2D items are separated from our 3D items by these large rotating rubber discs. They are these tri-shaped rubber discs, and they cause kind of like a wave-like movement to sort out the newspaper from the mixed paper as well as the containers. And as you guys can see in this photo right here, if you flatten or squish your plastic containers like a milk carton, it's going to end up in the paper bales because those tri-shaped discs are going to think it's a thin piece of paper and it's going to end up in the wrong bale. So please try to not crush your cans, not squish your plastic containers. Just keep them as big and unsquished as you can. All right, so to sum all that up, there's a thing called the dirty dozen. And if you only take one thing away from this presentation, it is the dirty dozen. So do not place these materials in your recycling bin, no matter what. The first one, batteries. Those are also a fire hazard. So do not place batteries along with those propane tanks. Those are both very, very, very bad fire hazards for the recycling facility. Tanglers. We call tanglers things like cords, Christmas lights, garden hoses, anything that can just really get tangled around those tri-shaped rubber discs. We don't want to put those in your recycling bin. Electronics, diapers. You guys would be surprised at how many diapers we see in the recycling facility. Diapers are not recyclable and they will never be recyclable. So do not put diapers in your recycling bin. Put those in the garbage. Food waste and yard waste. Medical waste is also a big one. No needles, no sharp syringes or prescriptions. Tires, you guys would be surprised at how many tires we see in there. Wood, hazardous waste, and then, like we said before, plastic film. So let's talk about tanglers a little bit more. So this photo you guys see is of a machine in the recycling facility, and you see all of those tri-shaped rubber discs, and all of the tanglers are going to wrap around this equipment, and it's going to cause them to clog and eventually shut down. So all of the things you see wrapped around that machine, that is all plastic film. So it all gets wrapped around, the machines have to get shut off, and then one of the recycling workers has to get into that machine and physically cut and scrape out all of that plastic film. So it really, really is important to keep those things out of your recycling cart. So what do we do with plastic film instead? So instead of going to the materials recovery facility to be sorted, you can take film to a drop-off site, and that way it'll get taken directly to the facility that melts it down. There is a really good website called Plastic Film Recycling, and they also have some really nice graphics on there that are downloadable, printable. You can also throw those on your recycling bin, your refrigerator, just as a really easy and quick reminder not to put them in your bin and where to put them instead. You can take plastic film to Sendix, you can take it to Meijer. A lot of local grocery stores recycle plastic film. And this film gets taken to a facility where it is chipped up, melted down, and it's recycled into shopping carts, patio furniture, playground equipment, and even garbage bags. So it gets another life too. So just a few more general recycling guidelines. I know I sound like a broken record, but all your recyclable items should be commingled in your bin. So just like that photo in the lower right-hand corner where all of those containers are just meshed all together, that's exactly how you want your recycling cart to look, everything loose in the bin. All the materials should also be clean. Try and rinse those out to the best of your ability. It helps with the sorting process. And also as dry as you can. If you have a half full bottle of soda in your recycling bin, it could get all over the paper and just contaminate your whole bin. So just as clean and as dry as you can. Caps, we like to say keep caps like with like. So milk jugs, the cap of a milk jug is plastic. So you can go ahead and put that plastic cap back onto your plastic milk jug and those will get recycled together. If you have a glass bottle that has an aluminum or a metal top, you're not going to want to put that top back on. You don't want to keep like with like. You're going to want to throw that small metal cap into the garbage. So just remember, like with like. Labels, those paper labels are fine to be left on your containers. You don't have to spend time taking those off. And then last but not least, when in doubt, throw it out. And this one is really hard for people to hear. I know it was hard for me when I first heard it, as you start out and you want to recycle everything that you can. But really, when in doubt, throw it out. Because if you're recycling things that aren't recyclable, that's going to lead to contamination. It's going to cause the facility to break down. It's going to cause the markets for the items to change. So always, 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 when in doubt, throw it out. All right, so the next half of the presentation today, now that we're all recycling pros, we are going to talk about what happens to our recyclables once they leave the MRF. So the MRF collects, sorts, and bales all of the material, and then it is stored at the MRF until it's picked up and taken to new factories to be turned into new things. So none of this actually happens at the Milwaukee Recycling Facility. It happens at different facilities around the country. We are going to start off by discussing paper. We are very fortunate here in southeastern Wisconsin to have quite a few domestic buyers for the recyclable products. One of these is where our paper is sent. So paper is sent to the Wisconsin's Fox Valley. There are a lot of paper mills located up there, and these paper material is turned into things like greeting cards, junk mail, computer paper, and it's done through a process of making it into pulp. So if you have ever made paper at school or for like an experiment, all you do is mix your paper with a bunch of water, you flatten it out, the paper gets dried, and then it can be cut into new sheets of paper. Because the fibers in paper get shorter every time you recycle them, paper can only be recycled 5 to 7 times. So please remember to use paper responsibly and recycle as much clean paper as you can. And cartons. So cartons, like the ones that hold shelf-stable things or things meant for the refrigerator, like juice or milk, are turned into tissues and paper towels. Similar to the plain paper we just talked about, these cartons are shipped to various paper mills. One of those specific mills right now is American Fiber Services, and they go through a similar process of pulping. And plastic. So as we mentioned before, there are 3 types of plastic that are recyclable. Plastic gets shipped off to various facilities and it is melted down. So we'll start with number 1 plastics. Number 1 plastics are sent to become new plastic packaging. So typically the bales of plastic that leave the Milwaukee recycling facility are sent to a company that grinds those plastic bottles into flakes. They wash them and then they produce new plastic sheeting that's sold to companies that will make it into new packaging. This ground number 1 plastic is also sold to companies that use it to manufacture things like clothing and carpeting. So it gets spun into a fluffy fiber and you can use it to make clothes, carpets, and even that fiber filling for jackets and sleeping bags. These purchasers can always change, but some examples of companies that we've shipped our number 1 plastics to in the past are Harmon Associates Corporation and a company called Mohawk. Number 2 plastics, those are going to be those plastic bottle and jugs. Those also become new food and beverage containers, but they can also be turned into agricultural drainage pipes and lawn and patio furniture. So the MRF separates those bottles and jugs into 2 different categories. One is the color category, so that would be things like detergent bottles, and 2 is the natural category. So that would be things like milk jugs, and these bottles are chipped up in the same way as number 1s and created into new things. The purchasers, like I said, are always changing, but one example would be Tab packaging. And last but not least, number 5, these are going to be those plastic tubs or pill bottles. These become new food containers. So the tubs are baled and shipped to various companies that process them in the same way as number 1s and number 2s. And one of the examples of companies that these are shipped for is called KW Plastics. So plastics get a lot of chances to be turned into new things. And metal. Aluminum actually travels to Anheuser-Busch in St. Louis. Anheuser-Busch is a parent aluminum can printing facility. So they print a bunch of plain aluminum cans, and those cans are then shipped off to smaller companies to get branded with whatever branding they're going to be. And aluminum is one of my favorite recycling stories because aluminum is infinitely recyclable. So no matter how many times you recycle an aluminum can, it will never ever lose any of its material. It's infinitely recyclable. And aluminum has a pretty quick turnaround time. From the time that aluminum can is recycled in your curbside cart, it can get turned into a new can on the store shelves in just 60 days. So very quick turnaround time. So please remember to always recycle aluminum. Steel and tin go through a similar process. These are shredded, cleaned, and then melted down into new sheets of metal. And these metal sheets are used to create new products like food cans, some car parts, and they even can get turned into appliances. And last but not least, what does glass turn into? So glass goes to a facility located in Delavan, Wisconsin called Strategic Materials, and it is sorted once more into different color types. So this is actually processed into something called a cullet, which are those small pieces of clean glass that are ready to be processed into new products. Then this material is sold to other facilities that will melt the glass and actually create the new glass jars and bottles. These bottles come right back into Milwaukee because of all of our wonderful breweries, and they're sold right back here. So it's really a closed loop system. Other products made from recycled glass include fiberglass and small glass beads used in reflective paint for highway stripping. So why are we rambling on and on and on about recycling? Are we just doing it for fun? No. There are actually a lot of benefits to recycling. I could go on for hours about different examples, but we're going to keep it short today. So recycling saves energy, it conserves resources, and it also prevents pollution. So by manufacturing new products from recycled material, it requires less energy than using virgin material. So for an example, 1 ton of recycled paper, which is typically 1 bale of paper at the recycling facility, saves 7,000 gallons of water because you're recycling the paper, you're not pulping new paper. It saves 17 mature trees, and it also saves enough energy to heat a home for 4 to 5 months. So that's 1 bale of recycled paper. And sometimes the recycling facility bales up to 100 bales of paper a day. So the energy savings and the resource savings really start to add up. Another fun example is a glass bottle. Recycling 1 glass bottle saves enough energy to light a light bulb for 4 whole hours. So 1 glass bottle, 1 beer bottle, and that's enough energy to light a light bulb for 4 hours, which is pretty crazy. And plastic also, recycling 19 plastic bottles, that is all you need to make 1 extra large t-shirt. So not only are you saving energy, but you're conserving resources. Couple other reasons why recycling is important. Recycling supports jobs. The recycling industry in Wisconsin supports about 97,000 jobs. So it's all the people that are collecting their recyclables, all the people that are working to sort through them, all of the people that work in the Department of Public Works, and all of those jobs mesh together. So 97,000 jobs. It also saves money. So Wisconsin taxpayers save money by recycling their materials rather than sending them to a landfill. It's cheaper for that recycling collection. And lastly, recycling is really good for our economy. Since the facility does get a market for those materials, recycling puts about $1 to $1.5 million into the City of Milwaukee's general fund, and this pays for city services that benefit you and your neighborhood. So all those really add up in the end. So what do you really need to know out of this presentation? There's 4 things. If you take nothing away from this today, just take these 4 things away. Number 1 is know before you throw. So like I said, there are a lot of great resources that you can look up on the City of Milwaukee's website, and they do update those every single year. So check back maybe once a year, just in case things have changed. But always, always know before you throw, which leads to when in doubt, throw it out. If you don't know, then throw it in the garbage. Third is no plastic bags in the recycling cart ever. So do not bag your recyclables in plastic. If you are collecting your recyclables in a bag, you can go ahead and empty the contents of the cart and then just keep reusing that bag over and over again. But don't bag your recyclables and don't put film in your recycling bin. And then fourth, which I think we lost the images, but that is okay, is empty and rinse. So that makes it easier for everyone. It keeps the recycling facility nice and clean. It keeps it smelling nice, and it keeps contamination down. If you guys are looking for more resources regarding recycling, like I said, you can go ahead and visit city.milwaukee.gov/recycles. There is a whole lot of information on that page. There's actually an entire recycling directory that goes from A to Z with any material you could ever think of, and it tells you if you can send it to a drop-off center, send it to the recycling facility, put it in your garbage. It'll answer any question you have. And we didn't really go into the recycling process in this presentation, but we did do a webinar back in April that was called Meet the MRF. So that presentation went into how all of the machines at the MRF work to sort through the materials. So we went through each machine. There were a lot of good videos that we showed. So if you want to know the recycling process and how everything is sorted at the MRF, you can visit our website, kgmb.org/webinars, and you will see that recording at the bottom of our home of that webpage. Also on that webpage, you are going to find information about our webinar Wednesdays. So the second and fourth Wednesday of every month, KGMB holds a webinar. We have a lot of really exciting ones coming up. On May 27th at 11 a.m., we're going to be talking about small space composting. So this is perfect for people that live in an apartment, that live in a condo, or maybe don't have a backyard to put a compost bin. If that's any of you, then tune into our small space composting webinar, because we will show you how to compost in any sort of space. On June 10th at 2 p.m., we will be hosting a landfill diversion guide webinar. So if you were interested in hearing more about those R words we talked about in the beginning of this presentation, this landfill diversion guide will be perfect for you. We are going to dig into all 6 R words and have a lot of good tips and tricks in there. And lastly, on June 22nd, we're going to be doing a Sustainable Summers webinar. So hopefully we'll actually be having some summer weather by June 22nd. But this webinar will give you guys some tips and tricks on how to enjoy your summer, but be sustainable while doing it. All right. So We have about 10 minutes for questions. I know I just threw a ton of information at you guys. So if any of you guys have questions, you can go ahead and put those into the Q&A box. I will go ahead and look at that. So I got a question that says, are small scraps of paper recyclable? Similar to shredded paper, those small scraps are going to go all over the facility. So if maybe you collect all of the scraps together and put those into a paper bag, then sure, you can go ahead and recycle those. But if it's just one tiny small scrap by itself, then I wouldn't put that in your recycling bin. We also got a question that says, I work at a school. The students don't always empty their plastic drink bottles. Can they still be recycled if half full? No. So please don't put half full drink bottles in the recycling bin. There's actually two reasons for this. One is going to be contamination. If that drink bottle gets spilt over the paper in your recycling bin, it might deem that paper unrecyclable since it's so wet. Depending on how long it sits in your bin, it could mold. So that's the first one. Those materials might not even be recyclable once they make it to the facility. And second, if the thing in the drink bottle it's an opaque drink, it may not even allow the drink bottle to get recycled. Drink bottles and other plastic water bottles are recycled with an infrared light, and if that infrared light can't scan the clear plastic because there's something in the container, it will not get recycled. So make sure you are emptying out your containers. All right. I live in Brookfield, Waukesha County. Our most recent recycling info said 7s are still accepted. Is your info the most up to date? So as far as I'm aware, 1s, 2s, and 5s are going to be the only recyclable options, and that is the most up-to-date information that I've gotten from the City of Milwaukee website. So no number 7s. What about plastics at fast food restaurants? And are there any fast food restaurants taking the lead on recycling? Plastic at fast food restaurants. If you're talking about like takeout containers, most takeout containers are styrofoam and those aren't recyclable. Some of them are actually number 1 plastics, the clamshell ones. So if those are clean and not have grease or anything in them and they are number 1, you can recycle them. As far as fast food restaurants taking the lead on recycling, I mean, once the containers leave their pickup window, they really don't have the choice of what happens to them. I would love to see fast food restaurants using less plastic and using more sustainable material, but as for right now, I couldn't name one off the top of my head that's really taking the lead. Are plastic bags from cereal boxes able to be recycled? No, nope, no plastic bags, even if it's the waxy ones. Just recycle the cereal box, but do not recycle the bag. Let's see here. Keurig coffee, open and dispose of grounds and paper filter to recycle the plastic K-cup. If you do have a Keurig, I would use a reusable K-cup. You can just pop coffee in it every day, and then you don't have to go through all of those plastic ones because those plastic K-cups aren't recyclable. Another question, it says Pringle cans. Pull off the metal to recycle cardboard tube and metal separately. It depends on the can. So Pringle cans is not lined in metal in the middle of it, but things like crescent roll containers that are lined with metal, no. You can't even recycle the tube because it's lined with metal. But if you do pull off the metal to recycle the cardboard tube, then I think that would work. Thinking about the plastic cups. Oh, we're back to the fast food restaurants. Plastic cups and plastic ware at fast food restaurants. Some fast food restaurants do have recyclable plastic cups. You just have to keep an eye out for the number on the bottom of them, a 1, 2, or a 5. And then always remember to take the top off. The top is never recyclable, and the straw is not recyclable either. So if the cup is a 1, a 2, or a 5, and you rinse it out and it's not sticky with soda, then you can recycle the plastic cup. Plastic ware at fast food restaurants. Plasticware or disposable cutlery is a number 6 plastic, which is those really cheap disposable plastics. There just isn't a market for number 6s. They're really just kind of end-use plastics, and I don't really think there will ever be a market for number 6s. So if you can, bring your own silverware, or just try and reuse your plastic cutlery. All right, do we have any other questions? I hope I did an okay job at answering these. Sorry if I missed any of them. Okay, well, like I said, this webinar was being recorded. So if you guys are interested in rewatching it or sending it to a friend, this will be edited and uploaded onto our website by tomorrow afternoon. So just keep an eye out for that. And we will also be uploading the Q&A onto our website as well. And if you guys have any other questions you think of tonight or tomorrow, you can go ahead and email me. My email is just my first name, Zoe, Z-O-E, at kgmb.org. I'd be happy to answer any other questions you guys have. But again, thank you so much for joining us today, and have a wonderful rest of your afternoon.